Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Jim Langfelder in Springfield. I welcome you to the Facebook Live for August 26th. And it gives me great pride to have this really great discussion that we will participate in here shortly. And I'll introduce our guest. It's Mayor Rockingham from North Chicago, Mayor Julie Moore Wolfe from Decatur, and then Brad Cole from the Illinois Municipal League. But first, I want to touch about where we're at with the coronavirus. The governor did make an announcement yesterday that beginning today in restaurants and bars, individuals that go in, the customers that go in need to wear their face coverings. So it's important that we continue to do that, especially whenever we're outside or in the company of others. If you're within that social distance of 6 feet, you should wear your face covering, over your nose and mouth properly, not like this or like this, but over your nose and mouth. And do that. And again, it's to protect yourself and to protect others because there's no vaccine as of yet. The only known way to stop the spread is to do those simple factors of using face coverings, washing our hands as much as possible, keeping our social distancing. And then for us, and I'm sure the mayors will weigh in when we get to the budget discussion or economic discussion, it's all about how do we stay in phase 4 and move forward in a positive manner. We don't want to roll back and, where we were last or in March when we started this out, when there was a stay-at-home order, we do not want to go back to those days. So it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to support one another and move in that direction. So with that, I will introduce our guest. First is Mayor Leon Rockingham from North Chicago. He's not only mayor, but he's our leader with the Illinois Municipal League. He's the president of the league. And I got to know Mayor Rockingham through the IML. And that's one of the benefits being part of an organization. It's the relationships you build. And it's really supportive. It doesn't matter what business you're in or if you're in government. It's really how do you talk to your peers. And we're all going through the same thing. And it's reassuring to get that information and share kind of those successes or the things that didn't go so well so we can learn from one another and be stronger in the long run. And Mayor Rockingham's been solid. It's been a valued companion and peer, not only for myself, but also for the Illinois Municipal League. So Mayor Rockingham, if you'd like to do a self-introduction and anything you'd like to do with a broad overview with the coronavirus, and then later on, we'll touch into the budget and more details of economic development and things of that nature. So, Mayor Rockingham.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for that introduction, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this Facebook Live, not only there in Springfield but throughout, Illinois. I just want to, begin by saying that. Again, my name is Leon Rockingham. I've been mayor here of the city of North Chicago for some 16 years. This is my 4th term in office. I also served as alderman for 12 years here in North Chicago. Born and raised, lifelong resident of the community. I've seen our community have changed over the years, but it's good and bad. So, it's been a positive throughout, this time. I will say that over the years, through my life, I have two daughters. I was married once to my wife, Gwen, who passed away with cancer. But, it's a blessing because I'm remarried to my wife, Yvonne, and we've been married for almost 3 years now. So, I've got 7 grandkids, and with my wife, I think it comes out to almost 12 or more. So, I mean, it's been a blessing. City of North Chicago, we're a population of about 32,000, and I know we're going to probably touch on it, but the census, which is so important to most communities, North Chicago is a predominantly minority community, and it's a hard to count. So census is going to have a big impact on how the development of our community continues to move forward. So, those are things that we're watching and concerned about here with the city of North Chicago. North Chicago sits on Lake Michigan. We're only probably about 10 miles from the Wisconsin border. So we're sitting up in the very northeast corner of Illinois. So we're sitting on Lake Michigan. Matter of fact, you know, if I drive more than a half a mile, I'm swimming to the east. So, but we do have a water plant that we do draw water from Lake Michigan that we do supply to not only North Chicago, but to other cities and communities throughout Lake County here. You know, we do, like I say, we have a population of about 32,000. But North Chicago does not, as far as our voting population, we have our own school district, which is a separate entity, and the park district is also a separate entity from North Chicago. Things that we do maintain is our library. So I'm looking forward to a very lively conversation. And as we all know, this coronavirus has affected so many of us. I'm looking forward to discussing what's going to happen and how things are going in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And on your water plant, are you a regional provider then? And what's your reach? Is it just within the county that you serve, or how far out do you go with regards to your water plant?
Right now, it's just in the county. We have about capacity. We have a capacity of over 20 million gallons a day. We're probably only pumping probably about 10 million. We go out to some of our neighboring communities outside of North Chicago. One of our biggest suppliers is Abbott Laboratories, the global pharmaceutical company. We supply water to them. So with that, so we've got to make sure that we comply with their standards also, because a lot of the chemicals that we produce in our water has to be maintained to meet their criteria. So so you know, we're pretty blessed with the fact that we do supply water to them. So a lot of your penicillin, erythromycin, some of the other pharmaceutical supplies come through North Chicago.
Yeah, and you have an Abbott laboratory right there where you're near you right now?
Actually, Abbott Laboratories started in North Chicago, in our downtown area. They have a large facility here in our downtown area. Then they've moved out into our county, which is actually borders our community, where they have their big park. They have some almost 35, 36 buildings out in the park area, as we call it. But we do supply water out to that also. Now, Abbott has, over the years, has split. They are now part of Abbott, and there has ADV. Abbott itself makes the more of the products that you use in hospitals itself, the bags and other equipment. ADV makes the chemical side or the pharmaceutical side.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure Abbott, when the pandemic started, I thought they were one of the producers of the defibrillator, or the devices for the ventilation, for ventilators.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were instrumental in putting those together. Yes.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And next is Mayor Julie Moore Wolfe, and I actually first knew her through my TV screen. She used to be way back when in WAND for and for us it was Channel 17, being a newscaster. But she's really blazed her own trail. She was the president, I believe, of the Chamber of Commerce there in Decatur, and became mayor of Decatur, which is I consider you just like a sister city, so to speak. Because we do share a lot of links with regards to your inland port, and they do shipping within Decatur, and it's important for some of our manufacturers here in Springfield. So that connection is real strong with our economy being a regional base. So welcome, appreciate you participating today, Julie, and if you'd share whatever you'd like with the audience, we'd appreciate it.
Sure, Mayor, thank you for having me. My name is Julie Moore Wolfe. I've been the mayor of Decatur for a little over 5 years. I've served on the city council since 2009. And in Decatur, the mayor's job is allegedly part-time. So my actual day job is in healthcare, where I've worked for about 12 years. Previously, as you mentioned, I worked for the Chamber of Commerce, worked at WAND for about 11 years as the evening news anchor. I also worked for the state of Illinois in economic development. So you might say I can't keep a job, but I've been very blessed with a lot of opportunities over the years. Decatur has about 76,000 people in it. However, the census, as Mayor Rockingham mentioned, is critically important to us. We are one of the fastest shrinking populations in the country, Decatur is. So we're very concerned about what the census numbers are going to bring. We've been actively annexing properties that had agreed to come in the city for water 20 years ago, and were just never annexed, and additional properties to try and boost those numbers. We did that a lot of last year. We're really trying to work in our neighborhoods to get people to participate in the census, because we struggle with our minority population getting them to fill out the forms. So, I keep telling people it only takes you 4 minutes, and it's like making $1,400, because for every person that we don't count, that's what we lose. Decatur, as you mentioned, is a transportation hub. We have an inland port. We have a very vibrant rail system. We do see a lot of trucks. We have agribusiness as our number one employer, Archer Daniels Midland, Tate and Lyle. We have a Caterpillar facility here. However, we're not quite the blue collar community we were 25 years ago. We're a lot more white collar. But like others, we're struggling through COVID. It has hit us, and hit us hard. We will make it through this year. But I am very concerned as we look at budgeting for next year, how we're going to do this without massive cuts to services, as well as the potential for letting employees go. And that's the last thing we want to do. In this time of civil unrest, having to cut back any police officers or any firefighters could be devastating.
No, without a doubt. And it's interesting you brought up the water. We had the same situation with Lake Springfield, where we used water as a way to really leverage our position in growth. So I think that's very important, especially for the borders of your water supply. And so was that difficult with regard to your annexations? Because, you have were they just in unincorporated areas altogether, and then you just were able to annex them in? And how was that met with the residents?
It's been a bit of a mixed bag. Many did not want to be annexed, but we had properties within basically the city limits that were not in the city. So trying to sell the fact that they were going to get to pay more in taxes, and they weren't sure their services were going to be all that better, because at this point we are not running sewer lines to a number of the properties that we've annexed in. We hope to do that in the future, but as you know, it's not like that's a cheap proposal, and it's not like we have a lot of money. So we had some residents that were fine coming in. They knew that this was coming. It was just a long time coming. We had some that were very unhappy about it. We're still working with some of those residents as to whether really their property fits in the city, but if they're entirely surrounded, it can be very confusing, because we have a lot of volunteer fire departments in the area that respond, and we really need to have kind of a cutoff that this is city and not volunteer.
Right. And, the reason I bring up water is the resource of the future. We talk about electricity a lot, but really the water is a resource we cannot reproduce. So it's good to have that infrastructure in place so we can take care of the residents. And as was pointed out, sometimes our bordering residents as well. Do you supply water to your bedroom communities around Decatur as well? Are you a primary source of water? And what's your secondary source, or do you have a secondary source of water?
Well, we just completed about, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, a $90 million dredging project, which of Lake Decatur, which is our primary source of water. We do have some wells, but water is so critical to our industry. It was imperative that after a couple of droughts of the century, within a 10-year period, we just couldn't run that risk anymore. And for economic development, both in retaining jobs as well as future jobs, we had to have a really secure water supply. We do supply to Mount Zion, not many of the other bedroom communities, however. We're more than happy to sign people up, because we charge them a lot more for our water than our residents pay. But as we learned with Flint, Michigan, water is an incredible resource that you have to be very, very cautious with, because it can make or break you. And we've been very, very careful about making sure our water supply is safe. We battled nitrates back in the 80s and 90s. We had a very big incidence of nitrates here. We've taken care of that problem. We have a good, clean water supply, and now it's plentiful. So and it's apparently really good for fishermen too. So.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. And last but not least is Brad Cole. Brad is the CEO or executive director of the Illinois Municipal League, and that's our lobbying arm for all our municipalities throughout the state. He does a great job. And the reason being that is because he was mayor of Carbondale at one point in time. So he really understands what it takes to deliver services to the residents. And that's what it's all about. I say it many times, we're the home of Abraham Lincoln, and it's all about government of the people, by the people, for the people. And those words ring as true today as they did back when Abe walked the earth. But Brad Cole is a living testament to that. He really coordinates and leads us in the right direction through the Illinois Municipal League. And he's our voice on a daily basis with the state, which we really appreciate through the governor's office as well. So Brad, if you'd like to do an intro and talk about the challenges you faced with regards to the pandemic, we'd appreciate it.
Sure, and thank you, Mayor, for the kind introduction. And it's good to see all three of my favorite mayors here today. Out of the 1,298 favorite mayors that I have generally, because that's how many cities, villages, and towns we have in Illinois. I did serve in elected office in Carbondale for 16 years. 8 years I was mayor there, and so it had a good foundation for me to come to the Municipal League to understand the issues that cities of all sizes from all over the state are dealing with. And certainly that is the role of the Municipal League, is to support and serve those communities of all sizes and of various demographic makeup, and of course different geographic components as well, because this is such a large state. The Municipal League's been here since 1913, and we do legislative advocacy, but we also provide legal support and consultation, as well as training, workshops, and seminars. So we try to be a one-stop shop for municipalities, and especially their elected officials and their mayors. And I feel like we do a good job of that. I would especially note that this year, Mayor Rockingham has been our president and is about to conclude his year here next month. It's been a fast year. Unfortunately, it's been a very unique year for him as our president. And Mayor Julie Moore Wolfe will be coming in as our first vice president next month also, which means she will become president of the league in a year from now. I would like to just point out, as the discussion centered a little bit on the census, I serve on the National Advisory Committee for the U.S. Census Bureau. And it is an issue obviously of importance to rural communities, but urban communities and those hard to count populations that Mayor Rockingham mentioned. Because of my work on the National Advisory Committee, we've tried to draw additional attention to communities in Illinois to complete their count and to make sure that their citizens are counting. As Mayor Moore Wolfe indicated, that $1,400 a year is real money that comes back to each of the communities. It also, that's just federal money. It also impacts the state distribution of shared revenues. And while not as much as the federal distribution, it's still a significant budget impact for communities. Right now, the Census Bureau is working on their follow-up. They're doing the door-to-door, and they've already done, but continue to do telephone follow-up for the addresses that they have where they haven't seen a response. And I've had a few people ask me, and I want to just clear it up for anybody that's listening. People have asked, well, why are we getting a survey that asks if we've completed, or a form that asks if we've completed the census survey? If they know we haven't, then why don't they just count us? Well, the forms and the follow-up go to addresses, but the Census Bureau does not know how many people lived at that address, and most specifically on April 1st of 2020. So somebody is coming to your door, they know that someone is living there, we just don't know how many people are living there. And there's been a lot of questions about why doesn't it just get continued? Why can't we spend more time getting these census forms filled out so that we do have a complete count? And the answer to that is because it is a statutory deadline by the Congress to report the results of the census to the Secretary of Commerce and the President by December 31st of this year. So there is a hard deadline to get that census count done, and that's based on the constitutional requirements to complete a census every decennial term. So that's an important topic, and I was glad it was brought up, and look forward to the conversation here, Mayor.
Yeah, we'll continue on that topic and discuss others. But for those of you that are watching and want to send in a question, you may do so through your Facebook Live feed, or you can always email feedback@springfield.il.us. And before I forget, you can always go to our website, springfield.il.us. We do have a COVID-19 web portal set up that has links to IML and other, state agencies and others, how we're dealing with the pandemic, and a lot of great information there. So feel free to go there at any point in time. But with regards to the census, Brad, do you know what the percentage is throughout the state, or I know for us personally in Springfield, I think we're like 68, 69%. I know the county's at 71%, but can you speak in broad terms as far as the state goes? And then I'd ask each of the mayors to kind of fill in, where they're at with regards to the actual participation rate.
Last numbers that I saw for the statewide count was between 55 and 65%. And there's obviously a significant portion of the state's population in the city of Chicago and in Cook County. And that's where they're having a very hard time with hard to count populations. That's where the door-to-door will be very important to pick up what could be literally 1 million people because of the undercount that took place 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the city of Chicago only saw, I think, a 65% completion rate. They were hoping to have a 75% completion rate this year, but they still are a long way from that. Statewide, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to count everybody. And we've been working on it with mayors like all three of you this entire year, trying to have local complete count committees and doing local projects. Like I know you have, Mayor Langfelder, and putting out public relations information for people. So we really need to get that count up. It's hard to count everybody that was in place on one day. It's really hard to count everybody that was in place one day during a global health pandemic. And so everybody acknowledges it's going to be hard to get an accurate count, but it's the law and it impacts many, many things. So we're trying to get as close to that 100% response rate as possible, but it's going to be very hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Wolfe, if you'd like to weigh in on Decatur.
Yeah, Decatur, last numbers I saw, we were a little bit under 60% counted. One of the things that we're doing, because we do have door-to-door that really got into full swing, and to be honest, I can't remember if it was this week or last week, but we, the census folks here, were able to purchase some culturally cool, I will call them, face masks. And we've got our census folks in our minority populated areas distributing those as they go to do the census. So we're trying to kind of do a twofer because our minority population has really been impacted significantly by COVID, like in a huge way. And so we're doing everything we can to get the messages out, both about filling out your census and wearing masks, and really trying to get a lot of messages out that it's not always easy to be heard.
No, that's a good point, especially, when you think it'd be easy because there's a stay-at-home order. You think, what are some people doing? They should fill out their census, but unfortunately that's not the case. And Mayor Rockingham was showing us the census. I need to get one of those masks. I don't have one yet.
I got plenty of
face covering.
Test them out.
Yeah,
I got
that's good.
In English or Spanish, whichever one you need.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, if you'd, do you have a large Spanish population there? Or if you'd talk to us about your population, your participation in census.
Be more than happy to. Yes, we do have a large Hispanic population, which again makes it a little bit more difficult. We're only at probably a little bit over 55% count. And, we know that that's very low at this particular time. The COVID-19 just affected us so badly We had many events that we wanted to get out to try to, get the word out and get people to come and sign up. But due to COVID, it just wasn't being able to happen. We're projected probably at this particular time, we're looking at almost $500,000 in loss in revenue just because of not getting counted properly. We're affected not only by the Black and Latino population. North Chicago is home to Naval Station Great Lakes, and Naval Station Great Lakes is the only recruit training center in the United States. Is right here in North Chicago. So if anyone in the country joins the Navy, they come here for boot camp and basic training. So again, due to COVID, it hit us again another way, because we usually get the count from the Navy. So any recruit that's here during that, like you say, that April 1st count, we count them as our population. Well, what was happening on April 1st? COVID, a lot of the graduations held, they stopped. So I think we're going to be undercounted in that respect also. And we do know a lot of the communities are concerned. They don't know, is that citizenship question still on the ballot? Are they going to come, ISIS is going to come and take us away because we report our census? We're trying to get the word out that no, this, when you do the census, it's strictly confidential. There's no way that the federal government can come in and get information, off of that, and if this does, if how it leaks out, it is a federal crime to do that. So we've been putting that word out that, just fill out the form. Julie spoke that, for each person that is not counted, your community, Julie said 14, we're getting like $1,800 per person that doesn't get counted. And that's over a 10-year period. So every year that $1,800 just, adds up. So it is, essential that, we get out and push that word out. So, I don't know how else to do it. We have had events though over the last couple of weekends. We have one coming up this weekend. It's an ice cream social. So we got to practice social distancing, wear your face mask. Again, wear your face mask, be counted. But, we're going to do a drive-through parade throughout the city of North Chicago. We're going to have our fire trucks and our police cars go out, and, we're going to have banners that says, come out and be counted. We're going to one of our parks once the parade is, and then we're going to try to get more people to come and participate to do that. And we're going to try to be doing that, something to that effect, every weekend until, this ends. We're trying to work with our numerators to go out, to the various addresses. We had a student work program here in the city of North Chicago, and because of COVID, they couldn't do as many projects we had planned. So what did we do? We gave them all phones and gave them a list of numbers to start making phone calls. Did you do your census? Come out and, be counted. You can stop in at the library. Come here to City Hall. There's areas where we've set up computers so they can go and do these census counts. So we're doing everything we can to try to promote that throughout, our community and throughout all of Lake County as a whole. So.
Yeah, I think you brought up some great points there, especially with how do you get the word out. And as we know, we all have a cell phone, text messaging, things of that nature, and sending the link. We've looked at that where there's some downloadable information from Census 2020. And so really it's up to residents to help out, local government, because that's a way we can pull in additional resources, especially community development block grant funds, which goes to affordable housing initiatives, homeless initiatives across the board. And it was pointed out that it means hundreds of thousands of dollars to communities like ours. And so it's very important. The other part is with regards to our voice in DC government, federal government. That's how the redistricting will happen with the population. So it's important that we all participate and the residents participate as much as possible. And Brad, do you know what the deadline is? I know they've changed it and there's talk about rolling it back in September sometime, but I wasn't sure do we know what the actual deadline is for completing the census?
Well, September 15th, I believe, is what they're trying to get everything done. The field, was the original target. The field collection and self-response absolute end date is September 30th. So, they've moved it back a couple of weeks, but the end of September is when that field response and the self-response. So the field response is the people that are going to door, and the self-response is people submitting it online. It's got to be done by September 30th.
I appreciate everybody continuing to push because, as we pointed out, just not our communities, it's for the whole state of Illinois too. So it's kind of a domino impact. And so we'll hopefully increase those numbers. And real quick, if Mayor Rockingham and Mayor Wolfe, do you know what your percentage were for Springfield? I think it was 78% last, in 2010. And right now we're at 68%, so we're about 10% lag. Do you know what yours were last time at all in 2010?
I
know
don't.
that's a ways back, but
Yeah.
Where we came in 10 years ago. No.
Yeah, but I'm sure they're all lower because of the pandemic, and it's important that we do whatever we can to increase those numbers. The other thing that's I've gotten a lot of questions on is with regards to the health. With regards to the CARES Act, that's the initiative the federal government passed billions of dollars, or actually trillions of dollars, and allocated them to different measures. And with the support to the states and the larger cities, like Chicago was the only direct subsidy going to Chicago, but at the CARES Act initiative, the dollars received went to the state of Illinois. And Brad's been, our conduit, relaying our concerns, our needs to the state. So if you'd like to speak to that, Brad, real quick, and then we all can weigh in on it from our own perspective with regards to that funneling effect, trying to get the resources we need, because we all know, and you can, if you want to start off touching about your survey that IML just did, that it was 87% of cities that responded, of course. 100% have been impacted, I'm sure. But of those that responded, 87% said that they've been impacted dramatically from the revenue resources coming in. And that's where the CARES Act dollars will help or could help alleviate some of that pressure. So Brad, if you'd like to touch on the survey and the CARES Act and the challenge with all of the dollars that could come our way.
Absolutely. As you indicated, we did a survey between the 1st of March and the end of July, asking municipalities if and how they were affected by the pandemic, primarily through their finances. And 87% did indicate that they are seeing some financial shortfall. Now that is inclusive of revenues like motor fuel tax, because we know during a stay-at-home order, people weren't driving as much. Also lost sales tax because they weren't shopping, although they were shopping for grocery items and some hard goods. But other reductions like the state shared income tax, which we refer to as LGDF, which is the local government distributive fund, because people were out of work, actual incomes have decreased this year. And so we're going to see a 10% decline in income tax receipts for communities. Other things that communities will see the impact in, you can argue the merits of these, but of the sources, but things like video gaming is down considerably because restaurants and bars were closed, and that's where the video gaming terminals were. So hotel motel tax revenue, and that's a big place. Without visitors, without tourism, you're not filling the hotels. Springfield knows this the most because it lost the entirety of the legislative session where people are coming to town, not just the spring tourists to see the Lincoln sites and other great sites that are here in the community, but the legislative activity. So hotel, motel, income tax, motor fuel sales, those are areas where the communities are going to see the loss. And how they make up for that will be yet to come, but there's really only two ways. You can either increase your revenues or decrease your expenditures. Increasing revenues means property tax increases. Just about everybody is under a property tax cap, so that's really hard to get around. And then you're going to be looking at cutting costs. More than 2/3 of any municipal budget is personnel. A lot of that is public safety and police and fire. So communities told us that they're going to be looking at, about half the communities, in fact, 46% said they'll be looking at cutting personnel or services, which means cutting personnel. About 20% said they would be drawing down their reserves, which is why they have reserves. But as all three of you know, several years ago, we went without a state budget for a year and a half, and those reserves were depleted then. And so once they're gone, they're hard to make up. And then about another 20% said they're just going to hold off on infrastructure repairs and the maintenance of capital projects. And when you don't fix the dam, you don't fix the roads, you don't invest in that water infrastructure that you just all three talked about, then you have bigger problems later on. So that's what we heard in the survey, which didn't shock us, but it validated what we had thought. The issue about the Federal CARES Act, I would note that today is August 26th, and exactly 5 months ago, the Congress passed the Federal CARES Act. The president signed it into law on March 27th. And unfortunately, to date, we haven't seen any of the dollars. Illinois was awarded $4.9 billion in the Federal CARES Act. $2.7 billion went to the state for the state to use for its purposes. The remaining $2.2 billion was then split up a couple of different ways. 1.4 of that $2.2 billion was dedicated and directed directly to the 5 largest counties and the 1 largest city in Illinois. So that was the city of Chicago and the counties of Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, and Will. Those are all suburban Chicago counties. The remaining $800 million was then to be distributed to the remaining 97 counties with almost 1,200 municipalities inside those counties. We have not seen any of that money distributed either. And of that $800 million, about $600 million was taken to establish business incentive grants that the state awarded to businesses in communities. And about 200 million, really about 150 when you get down to it for municipalities, is left to be distributed to cities, villages, and towns. We've had our disagreements with the state about how that's going to be done and when it's going to be done. Actually, today, the communities in those 97 counties can start submitting for reimbursements. But the test for that, the federal government laid out the qualifying parameters for those expenses, but the test for it really is, were these expenses related directly to COVID-19? Were they necessary? Is this causing a budget shortfall? And if not for COVID-19, would you have had these expenses? And as you've indicated at other times, Mayor Langfelder, and I know both Mayor Wolfe and Mayor Rockingham have experienced the same thing. Everything that was done in the city for the last 5 months related to COVID. All of the overtime, all the personnel costs, all the expenditures. So we're really trying to get that money out. We wish we could have gotten more of it out. And we are actively pursuing additional federal legislation through the Congress to get more direct municipal aid that would allow for reimbursement of lost revenue. Those motor fuel tax, hotel, motel, sales tax, and other things that I indicated earlier. That's where you're really going to have a budget hole that's going to be hard to plug. So that's a synopsis of the CARES Act, and I know it's impacting everybody across the state. Mayor Rockingham is in Lake County, and so his was one of the counties that got it directly, but the county has to distribute it then to the municipalities within that county, and that's not happening yet either. So the problems are statewide, and I will say also I've been working on point with the National League of Cities and the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which all of you are involved with, to try to move the Congress to giving more aid to local governments. It's been an interesting time these last 5 months since the Congress approved that money, and not $1 yet distributed.
And real quick, before I turn over to Mayor Rockingham to make comments, Brad hit on a point with the Illinois Municipal League, U.S. Conference of Mayors, National League of Cities. People might question, why do you go to this conference or that conference? Why do you, are you a member of these groups? The pandemic has proven their worth because they've really gone to bat on a national level, on a state level, and there are advocates for our citizens. And so it's a great resource, great network, and it's really proved its salt, so to speak, during the pandemic, which none of us had foreseen, but we really appreciate the efforts of all of those organizations. So thank you. But Mayor Rockingham, so Lake County, so you're set. You have all the money you need.
If we could just see some of it, it might help us out. I mean, let's look back. In March, we shut down. Every community just flat out shut down. And to this date now, and I'm just gonna kind of go on my little soapbox that, we've reopened. The city hall has opened for our residents and to the public. We're still only open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and just to make sure that we can maintain our staff. Our staff also rotates. Everyone's not in at the same time because we don't want something to happen and it shuts the whole department down, such as our finance department or our economic development department. So they rotate in and out. Public Works, almost the same way. The staff that's out there, they're rotating. There's a part that comes in the morning and another group that kind of comes in the afternoon part. This has hit all communities hard. Like you say, we have probably, as we start to look, and as Brad said, our sales taxes are going down, the gaming is going down. As I mentioned, North Chicago is home to Naval Station Great Lakes, and they used to graduate anywhere from 800 to 1,200 recruits every Friday, and that was all year except for 3 times, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's. Other than that, they have a graduation. What does that do? Every weekend, every hotel in Lake County is full, gone away. There's no revenue coming from the hotels. All the entertainment, all the restaurants are affected by the fact that every weekend that was their source of revenue to maintain their restaurants. Again, for North Chicago, even the gaming part, we're looking at almost $2.5 million in loss just in the revenue side, for a small community like North Chicago. So, that's one of the things that are affecting us. Which is almost a 20 to 25% decrease in our budget. So I mean that's devastating for a lot of communities. We also, as you spoke on, how does it affect ourselves as far as trying to get the revenue from the CARES? We're almost $300,000 what we've just put into making sure that with overtime, getting the city hall set up to make sure that we can accept the residents and keep them safe. Masks, sanitizer, all the plexiglass that we have now put up throughout City Hall to make sure that as our residents come in, that they're safe also. I guess we can go on and on the issues that have affected and how the communities. And if we don't get the dollars back in, that comes out of our budget. You talk about how communities have been affected and talking about layoffs. We already went through that. We went through an intercept here with our fire department, and it was almost like $2 million that we had to get into our fire and police pensions. So 2 years ago, we did the layoffs, we did the restructuring, we did be able to combine resources to try to offset that. So, I mean, we don't have that ability. We're already down to the bone. The meat has been cut off already. So, you know, a lot of those that, you know, we have to work with our budget on these losses. If we don't start to receive some of the revenue back, you know, it's gonna just make it harder to try to balance that budget again. So it's a serious effect that's going on right now.
Yeah, I think we're calculating, right now we have accumulated expenses over $1 million. I think 4.8 million is designated towards Springfield towards that end. But I think you hit on an important part, Mayor Rockingham, with regards to cities that had already taken the cuts previously, scaled back to a large portion due to the crash of the economy back in, I think it was 2000, what was that?
8 and 9.
10, yeah, 8, 9, 10. And so we used to be we were at 1,500 when I came into office. I think we're about 1,350, somewhere around there, but we continue to tighten the belts, and that's the challenge. But Mayor Wolfe, if you'd like to weigh in on what you're seeing as far as the impact, and I don't know if I know we've received small kind of designations of grants, but anything you'd like to share on that side of things, how challenging that is when we don't have the resources as of yet. As Brad Cole said, it'd be this week when we first can apply.
Decatur's revenue shortfall from COVID was right around $5.5 million, which may not seem like a fortune, but in our budget, that is a fortune. We had managed to really, when I took office, we had 5 days of cash reserves, and we built that up to a little over, right around 45 days. But even if you wipe all that out, we're not going to get back the revenue that we lost. What's frustrating to me is the intent, if I understood it correctly from Washington, was to get that money into the hands of cities and local governments who really understood where it needed to go to help us recover. I'm not going to recover lost gaming revenue. We're not a tourism spot such as Springfield. We don't have the naval base that Mayor Rockingham does. But we still have a lot of hotel motel from business travel, from kids sporting events, whether it's a softball tournament or what have you. That's all gone. When restaurants were open for takeout only, and we still have a lot of people that aren't going into restaurants, we are getting some of that food and beverage tax money back. But when people sit and they have a few adult beverages with their meal, it's different than when they just pick up the food, go home, and they get a six-pack or a bottle of wine on their way home. So those are monies we won't get back. One of the things that we've been doing in Decatur, our minority population is like anytime there's a health issue, the minority population is disproportionately impacted. Of our positive cases of COVID in Decatur and Macon County, almost 40% are in the African-American population. I only have a 20% minority population. So it is way out of where it ought to be. So we've been doing some very targeted ads with geo-fenced into pre-rolling for videos and music and anything that might be attractive in the market for our African-American population, particularly our younger African-Americans in the 20 to 45 age group, because we've really got to get that message in. I'm very concerned about going into cold and flu season because, again, our minority population is not good at getting flu shots. And if you combine flu and COVID, it's very possibly a death sentence, or at the very least, it is going to impact the health of our minority population in a huge way, ways that we won't be able to recover from. Because again, with disproportionate health care, you know, we have a lot of pre-existing conditions in our minority population, whether it's high blood pressure or diabetes or obesity. And so that's the population that's going to be the most vulnerable. So we're doing what we can to try and spread the word about, you know, the simple thing about wearing face masks and washing your hands. But I'm very, very concerned. We've been working with the NAACP, but we've got a lot of work to do. If we don't get help in a major way, I don't know how we recover. I can't tax my citizens more. We have hit the point, you know, where there's just no more money to come back to us. So I'm very concerned about what next year's budget is going to look like. And in the middle of all of this, we also have a great deal of civil unrest. We've had looting, we've had peaceful protests, but we've had a lot of bad behavior too. In the course of 2 nights, we had 14 arson fires. There are a lot of things that are going on here, so this is not a good time to cut police or cut fire. And, as you were mentioning, back in the recession of 08, 09, we did cut out a lot of our fat. I mean, it's gone. And what we learned from that was we kicked the can down the road on a lot of things. We didn't buy new police cars. So what happened? Well, instead of that rolling, you buy 3 or 4 cars now and 3 or 4, down the road, our police cars didn't work. We got to where they weren't functioning. We had to just borrow a ladder truck from the city of Bloomington because one of ours was involved in a car accident, hit by a suspected drunk driver. So it's out of commission for a few weeks. We're in trouble, and we need real help. We need that money released to where we can put it to its best use, to get our businesses going again, to help plug our holes.
Yeah, and I think that's where the lobbying efforts come on the national level as well as the state level. We'll continue to do that for ourselves. We've gotten a range from anywhere from $8 million deficit to $16 million deficit. If you ask me today, where do you think it's going to come in at, Mayor? I would say it's going to be right around 11 million, somewhere around there. But we're looking at, I'd be interested to know if either the mayors had started the cuts as far as layoffs. What we've done is slow down spending. We asked all departments to, not fill positions, slow that down, because the last thing any one of us want to do is furlough people or, lay them off. And the tax question for me is out of the question, as Mayor Wolfe had pointed out, because people are taxing up and they're without a job, that is double harm. So really it comes down to getting the federal help and state help as much as possible. But the other thing I'll throw out there is the pension ramp. I know our pension, I think Mayor Rockingham brought it up, pension costs continue to rise for police and fire. And one thing I have talked to the governor's office about, and I know IML has, is pushing the ramp out where I think it right now is at 2040, where you have to get 90% funding. We should kick it out. Just like you refinance your mortgage, you do this all the time in personal finances. You refinance to ease up the cash flow. You still have the obligation, but you extend it so you can make those, you have a less amount to pay, especially during a pandemic. I think that pension ramp, everybody should be on board. It shouldn't be a big discussed issue with the unions. It should be the right thing to do to push that out to 10 or 15 or 20 years. But Mayor Rockingham and Wolfe, if you'd, and then Brad can weigh on too, have you started that budget? Have you actually laid off or cut, or how's that process going to work for you?
Well, let me just say from my end, and I want to kind of echo what Judy said earlier. North Chicago is a minority community, so we have plenty. I mean, a lot of our residents are essential workers, and at the height of the pandemic, we were one of the highest communities, percentage-wise, that were affected, because a lot of our community, they're the ones that are still working at the Walmarts. They're the ones that are at the Amazon packing the products to get them out. They're the ones that are still working in the hospital. So we were heavily affected by the pandemic and that in that effort. So, and then you talk about layoffs. Well, like I said, we're bare bones already. What we did from our side, we passed our budget as it was because we were pretty well set to go, and we're going to have to readdress it once we kind of know where these numbers are going to end up at. And at that point, how do you start to address it? We have held off on a lot of our road projects, a lot of our infrastructure projects we've held off on because we don't know how it's going to affect. But then, those road projects that needed to get done because they've been sitting out there for the last 25 years or better, that the road is just deteriorating, then that road is going to sit, and that's not good either. We've got some infrastructure projects that we're looking at right now that we know every winter that water main that should have been replaced this year is going to start, having, leaks, and that's going to cost us more money because now you're going to have to pay overtime for that public works to come out and repair them. So I mean, it's just a snowball effect that's happening right now. But as you say, as far as cuts, I couldn't cut any. Our police, our complement for North Chicago is 60 officers. We're already down to close to less. I think we're at 50 or less, 49, 48. I can't. I've got to keep those officers on the street for the safety. So where else are you going to cut? And again, you can't raise property taxes. I mean, it's devastating for those, like you say, a lot of our community were furloughed and now, they've been laid off. It's sad to go, and I'll just say this, I've gone to a cleaner's for the last 15 years. It's sad to walk in the door with my bundle of clothes saying, I'm here to help you. And he looks back at me and says, I can't accept it because we're closing tomorrow. And I come back there the next day and all the machinery is starting to be packed up. So we've got small businesses in my community, and I'm sure in your own communities, that are doing the same effect. They can't sustain because they have no, customers coming in. And that's affecting all of us again in regards to sales tax, employees as far as jobs go. It's all just a snowball effect.
Yeah, Mayor Wolfe, on your budget and anything else you'd like to add in on that? Any steps you've taken or that process?
Well, so far we have not laid anybody off or furloughed anyone, but that's probably a reality we're going to have to face. It's not what anybody wants to do. I don't know how you cut our police force or our firefighters any more than they already have. We haven't been replacing people the way we should. We had 3 fire inspectors positions. We have not replaced them. We're getting by right now. I don't know where we'll go from here. The last thing we want to do is shut down a firehouse. Just because we're having a pandemic and economic collapse doesn't mean that emergencies stop. If anything, I think the attitude and the need for policing has increased. You don't want to cut police training. We need that now more than ever because of the state of the country at this point. So getting back to what Mayor Rockingham was talking about, though, our small businesses. If you would go during the shutdown, there were essential stores open, Walmart, Target, they were doing great things. If you went to Lowe's or Menards, great guns. I mean, it was like the Friday after Thanksgiving, they were jammed in their parking lots. Meanwhile, my mom and pop shops weren't open. They couldn't be. And so the thing we cannot take, and I keep stressing this to our public, you have to wear the masks. We cannot afford as an economy to go backwards. And many of our counties are now starting to see across the state that they are being rolled back. We can't take another shutdown. And if we do, we've got to do it differently. If we've got to have some more restrictions. For example, hospitals were shut down for everything except emergencies and COVID. In April and March, hospitals across the state of Illinois lost $1.4 billion a month. In many communities, hospitals are the largest employers. Well, if you're not doing elective procedures and you are not doing tests like colonoscopies and mammograms, when people find out those conditions, they're sicker, they're more expensive to take care of, and we lost people. People didn't go to the hospitals because they were afraid, and so people had heart attacks and strokes at home. And how do you recover those losses? You don't. So we have to do this smarter as we go into cold and flu season. We've got to be better prepared. We've got to be smarter. We've got to figure this out. But we've got a lot of problems on our plate right now, and I'm proud to be serving in this. I just would really appreciate some help from the state and from the federal government.
Yeah, Mayor Wolfe hit the nail on the head with regards to changing. We can't go into the rest of this year like we did in March, April, May. We have more information. we can't roll back. I think it's crucial to our small businesses. Unless you want all the restaurants to close up, all the bars, I think that's imperative that we need to hold the line, figure out what we need to do, especially with the hospitals, and the list goes on and on. How do we work within the parameters of the environment of the coronavirus? And one important fact, then I'll ask Brad and everybody else to wrap it up. This hour went fast, so I'd like your commitment to come back at some point because it's been a great dialogue. But I think it's important that people support one another. So much, it doesn't matter if it's nationally or state or even in our local city, people look to blame. There's nobody to blame for the pandemic. Let's support one another and work to one another. I think Mayor Wolfe brought it up. Let's wear the mask. You know, it's for everybody's protection. You don't know who you can infect, but really it's about staying where we're at and moving forward in a positive direction. But I appreciate everybody's joining today. But Brad, if you'd like to say a few words and wrap it up, and then we'll go in reverse order to Mayor Wolfe and then Mayor Rockingham, and then I'll tie it all together. So, Brad?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I think all three of you have done an excellent job of laying out the issues and discussing them from your perspectives. And just what I see from a statewide perspective is everything you've said is what everybody is going through. There may be a different scope or level of the impact, but it's all relative to each community's size and place. The good news is that we do have great leadership at the local level. People trust their local governments. They know their mayors and aldermen and women. And that's where we're going to solve these problems. And that's how we're going to come out of it, is through leadership at the local level. So I can just close by saying thanks to all three of you and all the other local officials that are working hard to accomplish the tasks that are necessary, and appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you mayors today.
Well, thanks, Brad. Mayor Wolfe?
You know, when 9/11 happened, this country came together as one to get through it, to understand it, and to fight back. I'm disappointed that we seem to be so divided as a country right now. This is not about politics. This is about health. It's health of our residents. It's health of our economies. It's health of our nation. We've got to pull together to figure out the solutions. And maybe this is a game changer. Maybe we've got to take things off the table that have never been off the table before and start over. Let's throw out some of the old stuff. I realize it's hard to give up the way we've always done it, but we've got to find economies of scale and figure out how we can join forces to defeat the virus and bring our economy back on. Thank you for having me.
Good. Thank you, Mayor Wolfe. Mayor Rockingham?
Well, first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for having us on the panel. It's been a real lively discussion. You know, I do want to kind of end in a positive note for North Chicago. You know, I know we've had we've talked about all the negatives, but, you know, North Chicago, you know, as far as our economic development side, you know, we do see some positives that are still going on through this pandemic that we have. You know, our community, right now, we've been continuing to work on a new Sprinter dealership coming into our community. We've got a Starbucks that is looking to come in. And then there's a 3-acre truck stop out on our Route 41, which is a corridor between Chicago and Milwaukee, that is in the process. So, I mean, there are some positives that are going on, and I'm sure throughout, you know, your communities also. So, you know, through all of this, there's still development that's happening. You know, I will echo what everyone is saying. The only difference between March, when everything shut down, and now is they tell us how to avoid getting the virus. You know, wear your face mask, social distancing, and sanitize. You know, wash your hands and make sure you're social distancing. That's the only difference. The virus is still there. You can still get it. So, you know, there's no cure. There's no vaccination for it. So from March to now, we know how to avoid getting it. So we've just got to continue to let people know that's the positive that's out there. So, you know, let's all be safe. You know, hopefully we can continue to bring that to all our communities. And I say to everyone, you know, again, stay safe and healthy. And thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be on here.
Well, thank you. And a quick plug to Decatur. Actually, they have a police academy that we participate in now, where we were going elsewhere, but that's been a great regional provider of those services and how do we work together. And I think everybody hit on the importance of local businesses. That's the backbone of any city, especially our city. So for those viewing, if you would take the time to shop local as much as possible, in person if you can. If you're doing online, do it local, but we receive the most revenue that way, and it does flow through to your police and fire protection, your roads, and so forth. So we really appreciate it. But I'd like to go back to what Mayor Wolfe had said and the importance of respecting one another. And, you know, our favorite president, my favorite president, Abraham Lincoln, said it best: a house divided amongst itself cannot stand. And now is the time to stand together and support one another and do the social distancing, wear your face covering out of respect to protect each other. That's all we're asking. And so that's what will help us keep the economy moving in a positive direction. And so those simple factors. And by doing that, we will make today better than yesterday and tomorrow better than today. So I appreciate everybody joining us today, and hopefully we will see you again next Wednesday at noon. Thank you very much. And I will have these three back on at some point in time.
Look forward to it.
Right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.